How's it going, everybody? RazingHel here, and today we're going to be looking at the features that have been added to the Stronghold Kingdoms iOS app, along with the update 1.0.516. So this was an update that was released on the 19th of September, and it adds quite a few nice little quality of life improvements. So we're going to be going through those one by one, and I'm going to demonstrate how they work and what my thoughts are on each of them. Okay, so first off here, we have the added ability to now abandon or convert a village. You can do this simply by entering the village you wish to abandon or convert and tap on the settings button and then tap your action. If you want to abandon the village, it will pop up a warning asking you if you are really sure that you want to go ahead and do that. And when it comes to converting a village, the process is much the same. So functionally the equivalent of the desktop version of Stronghold Kingdoms, and it's great to have the ability to actually perform that action through the mobile app. Okay, the next addition added a pop-up for selecting resources to buy, sell, or transfer. So you'll notice this whenever you're using merchants, whether you're trading with an exchange or another player. Instead of having the old carousel method, as I called it, way of doing this, we now can actually tap the select resource button, and it'll open up a little separate menu screen that you can select directly the resource that you require. So this is going to save a ton of time when it comes to actually selling the resources you're interested in, as you might be familiar, or hopefully not, because it was a really bad system. Before, you actually had to cycle through every single resource that was available to the player to sell. And yeah, that, as you might imagine, that is a huge waste of time, and this is a much improved system. One thing I did notice about this system, however, is that when I was transferring resources from one village to another, we still had the classic next resource text on the button that was actually designed to bring up the entire menu. So that's something that is going to be changed in a future update. It's simply just a little text error, but it is a little bit misleading, I suppose, if you're new to the game and you're expecting consistency in the UI. Okay, next added was the ability to see which cards are in play and to cancel cards that are already in play. Obviously a very valuable feature, really nothing else to say about that. Okay, next up, there has been added another filter in the cards menu that will display the recently played cards. So now I have no idea if this is a direct result of me pointing it out or other players hopefully pointing it out as well, but in the desktop version of Stronghold Kingdoms, you most certainly have the option to filter your cards by the most recently played. And while it's true that this is a feature that's now been moved over or copied over to the iOS version of the game, it's still a very poor implementation of it, in my opinion. So you start out and the options that you're presented with are not apparent. So you're going to have to sort these cards by using the sort menu. The sort menu is not really self-explanatory, and as you'll tap through it, you'll notice that it has multiple different statuses. You can sort from A to Z, you can sort from Z to A, you can support, I keep saying support. You can sort from 0 to 9 and 9 to 0, and at the long tail end of that, you'll finally get to a screen that tells you which cards are the most recent ones that you've played. Now, when I first was trying to figure out how this worked, I actually had to restart the client because I thought there was a problem in what I was seeing, the results I was seeing. I thought it would cycle through A to Z and 0 to 9 first, and then it was getting stuck and it wouldn't show the most recent cards. It was only afterwards that I discovered there are about 6 different states actually cycle through in the sort tab before you actually get to the most recent cards that you've played. I don't know how many people are actually going to find this as a feature. It's so hidden from like the average player's view that I just don't think it will ever pop up. And so while it's nice that the option is in the game, having to hit the sort button 6 or 7 or however many times, it's ridiculous. It's too many times. It's going to make that feature by and large just as useless as it not being in the game to begin with. Next added was the ability to see what scouts and merchants are carrying. So as you might imagine, when you're looking at various actions across the world map, you might see merchants, merchants, you might be sending merchants, same thing with scouts. And now you can actually see that if a scout's returning from a resource stash, you'll be able to tap on it, and that scout itself will show the number of resources that it is carrying back to the village. Same thing with merchant transfers between villages. You can just go ahead and tap on that merchant, and it will show you what it's carrying, what it is transporting, either to a market or to another village. The next new feature is a button that adds the ability to send a mail directly to the parish steward. So I thought this was a pretty cool feature because it helps facilitate additional communication between players in the game. That's always a good thing, helps build community. And how you go about doing this is you go ahead and you tap the parish button in the lower left corner of the screen, and that'll open up your local parish for the village that you have selected. Then tap the little envelope icon in the lower right hand corner of the parish that says steward below it. And this will open up a little mail dialog that has the subject as the name of the steward, and it has its recipients listed as 0, which means that you can't actually use this feature. So I'm not exactly sure how things like this get past Q&A, because this is fundamentally broken. I have tried restarting the client and I don't get any additional options. It just does not choose my steward, who in this case his name is Dave Clark, as the recipient. Instead it puts it as the subject, which is not a very good subject. Let's admit, that's a terrible subject. If somebody sent me a mail with my name in it, that doesn't mean anything to me. That's a terrible subject. It might as well say hi. So it needs to be changed. The recipient needs to be what's now the subject, and it should either allow me to enter a subject myself. Obviously there's a field here that looks like you could enter something into it, or simply have it like parish or parishioner contact form or something like that, where like me as the steward would have a general idea of who is mailing me. I would personally like it to be preempted with something about this is going to be a default mail sent from a parishioner. I think that would be great, but having the player change it is fine as well. But it really needs to add the ability to directly send a mail to the parish steward, because otherwise I can just open up the mail client myself and then go ahead and search for the right player and then send them the mail, or I can just tap on their icon, their village on the map, tap the mail icon, and away you go. When you're even trying to add the recipient as my steward, I couldn't do it. I don't know exactly why, but I would tap the arrow to select that player, in this case Dave Clark. It would turn white as if it had registered that command, but then when I would close out of it, tap out of it, the recipient, there was still 0. So it's basically broken. From what I can tell, I have no idea what is wrong with this. It sounds like a great feature. Like I said, I think it is a great idea for helping build community and facilitating communication between players, but it's not working for me. I'm playing on an iPad. It's a recent iPad. It's the one from this year. I have the most recent version of the client. It's not like on Windows where you can really screw things up by having a wonky hardware configuration. This should work, and it doesn't. Okay, next added was a confirmation box for deleting buildings from a capital. So capitals such as your parish, your county, province, country, etc. Very simple. It's a great idea because sometimes you accidentally hit stuff, and deleting parish buildings can be especially harsh, the ones that are leveled up significantly. So this is a great change. The next addition that has been added is the faith point cost is now displayed when sending monks. So this is very helpful if you need to send monks to another player. Perhaps you don't know how much it's going to cost to interdict them because there's a disparity between your ranks. It's very, very useful to be able to see exactly how much it's going to cost you, so you don't have to know off the top of your head, because how many people actually know that? In my experience, it worked quite well, and I had no complaints about it. An excellent addition. Next added, or should I say updated, was the user achievements menu. Now, I'm not certain what it looked like before, but I have to say, as it stands right now, I think it rivals that of the achievements in the PC version of the game. And actually, I think I prefer it a little bit more. Granted, it takes quite a bit longer to scroll through all your achievements, but just simply seeing your shields getting filled in there gives you a certain sense of accomplishment, more so than having your badge sort of upgraded through different colors. Like you had your iron color upgraded to silver, upgraded to gold, etc. I just like seeing this idea with the shields added in. It's sort of like completing a set. It's just more visually compelling, I guess you could say. So I think that's definitely a great feature added to it. And it's kind of interesting that visually it differs from the PC version of the game. But overall, I wouldn't mind it if this was like a visual change that was also added to the PC version of the game. The next addition, achievements and completed quest buttons have been added when clicking on a village and then pressing the avatar. So now this is one of those things where it might not be exactly self-explanatory, but I think people will get the gist of it quite quickly. So the idea is that if you tap a village on the map, then it will present, the avatar of the player who owns it. If you tap that avatar, it'll go ahead and open up their profile. Now, this gets into another area that I think could be improved, to be honest. I think there could be like a little button below the avatar that says info or something to that extent, or maybe even just a profile button, because at the moment, it works quite well and there is a large area for you to tap on. But if you simply don't know it's a tappable area, because there's really nothing that indicates that too well, it's just really easy for players to think that there is no more information to be had. Next, the Village Honor report screen has been improved. So if you're interested in seeing this in action, you can go ahead and in your village screen under the honor button that you can tap, there's going to be a daily honor summary now, which lists your base honor as well as your popularity multiplier. And then it'll also list out the honor that you're receiving per day because of those two numbers. So it really does help sum up what all the factors are, in addition to the regular cards that you have off to the side that you can scroll through to see where all your village popularity multiplier is actually coming from. Whether or not it's being subtracted from due to having AIs in that parish, or whether or not you have cards in play that can increase your popularity multiplier. And overall, it just makes a lot of sense to be in this area because it's under the honor tab, and this is something that affects your honor quite directly. The next feature that's been added is the banquet button has been moved to the new village honor report screen. So if you tap on the honor button, as I mentioned before, you get to see your daily honor summary, and just above that is another button you can tap that says banquet on it, and this will actually open up your banqueting screen or banqueting menu, however you want to look at that. And this works much the same as before, but I think it is really a great idea to consolidate all of this, both passive and banqueting honor, under one tab or button called honor in the general village screen. Another feature that's been added is that uncovered stashes on the world map will actually show how much is left to be collected. This is pretty standard functionality from the base PC version of the game. It's great to see that players who are on iOS can now see the same numbers as well. Lastly, but by no means leastly, we have better troop placement on towers in castles. Now, this is quite ambiguously worded, and I just figured I'd monkey around and see what was what. I didn't see any great changes, but I have to say the game seems to be a little bit more intelligent when it comes to actually putting troops down on towers. However, removing them from towers leaves a bit to be desired, I think, especially if you've previously saved your formation before. I found that when adding troops to a castle that I had saved the formation on the PC version of the game, that when I hit the undo button, it would frequently remove troops that I had not actually placed during that session. So if you think about this, say you have 3 towers to the front of your castle, you go ahead and you place 9 archers on each of those towers, and then you decide that you wanted to place, I don't know, you wanted to place as many archers as the tower could hold. So you hit the undo button. However, after the first 9 archers being removed, it starts removing archers from other parts of the castle that you actually hadn't just modified. And like I said before, these were changes that I made, granted, previous to the most recent update of the game. So there might be some backwards compatibility or incompatibility more specifically going on there, and maybe going forward from here, this will never be an issue. It was just some small little thing that I experienced. So by and large, I have no issues placing down troops on towers. I think it works really well. However, I would have to request that there would be a button that would just remove all of the troops from my castle. Maybe I'm overlooking this option, but just the idea that I have to select troops individually to try to kick them off the towers makes rearranging stuff take much longer than it ever should. And because even though most players will just save their formation and deploy it automatically, I just think there is a great case for being able to remove all of the troops at one time without having to resort to some very finicky sorts of touch selection when it comes to troops. I'm not exactly sure what the best solution is for selecting troops. The current system has been improved, but I don't think it is groundbreaking, I guess you could say. It still has all all the limitations that we're familiar with when it comes to interacting with real-time strategy game type units on a touchscreen. So that covers the updates that have been made to the iOS version of Stronghold Kingdoms for version 1.0.516. The game is continually being updated, and we'll likely see more updates coming soon in the future. In regards to the Android version of the game, I will actually try to cover the changes made there as soon as I get an x86 version of the game up and running on a virtual machine, because I don't actually have an Android device, believe it or not. But I know the Android version of the game is a lot more popular among Stronghold Kingdoms players, so I think I would be remiss to exclude it in totality from my efforts here to inform the players as to what sorts of changes have been made. So I know this review came a little bit late itself. It's been almost 10 days since this update that we're talking about here has been live, but I figure better late than never. So that's my philosophy here. But thank you very much for watching as always, and I hope to see you next time.